In this video, I will be demonstrating how to transform parabolas using the vertex form of a quadratic equation. First, to understand the vertex form of a quadratic, it is going to be in the form of a times x minus h squared plus k. The vertex is hk, which basically is just representing the number that is inside the parentheses with the x is going to represent your x value of the vertex, and the outside number k is going to represent your y value of the vertex. Now do understand that because this starts with a minus, that it is going to be the opposite sign of the vertex. To determine whether your parabola is going to open up or is going to open down, all depends on the number that is in front of the parentheses. If the number or the constant a is positive, then the graph is going to open up like a parabola. If a is negative, then the graph is going to open down or a frown face. The axis of symmetry is still going to be the x value, just like in previous video we discussed how the x value of the vertex is going to be represented by your axis of symmetry of x equals that number, because we talked about it being a vertical line. And the y-intercept is plugging in 0 for x. So if you plug in 0 for x and just simplify this equation out, you will get your y-intercept point. So it will be the point 0 and then some type of number. So to graph in vertex form, first we are going to look at our first value that is multiplied by your parentheses, and it is positive, which means it is going to look like this. It is going to open up, which means the vertex is going to be at a minimum value. And now the vertex is going to be the x value is the number that is inside the parentheses, so it is 3, and the y value is going to be the number on the outside, which is -4. Now don't forget, remember how we talked about the fact that there was a minus, which means you don't put a -3 in the vertex. It is going to be its opposite. And the way to remember that is you got to think of like what number -3 will give you 0. And the answer is a +3. A +3 minus 3 will give you 0 inside the parentheses. And so that's why it is 3. The axis of symmetry is going to be x equals, and then whatever your x value is. So it's going to be x equals 3. And the y-intercept is you are plugging in 0 for x. So I'm going to take 1/3 and I'm going to plug in 0 for x and solve. So I'll have 1/3 times -3 squared, which becomes a +9. Be careful because negative squared turns positive. And then 1/3 times 9 is 3, and 3 minus 4 is the number -1. And so the y-intercept is 0, -1. So I'm going to plot everything I know. The vertex is 3, -4. So here's 3, -4. I know that is my vertex. I know it opens up on both sides. So I'm going to be drawing lines going up. The axis of symmetry is x equals 3. And I know that the y-intercept is at 0, -1. So I know that this will curve down here, and it will curve in some way to go through 0, -1, and then go up, and on the other side it's going to do the same thing. If I went left 3 and up 3, I'm going to go right 3 and up 3, so I know it's going to hit about right there as well, except I missed it, and then go up from there. And that is a rough sketch of what that parabola will be. So I would like for you to pause the video and attempt this one on your own, and then hit play in order to see the answer. Okay, so the first thing I notice is that there is a negative in front, which means that this is how the parabola is going to look in some way, which means the vertex up there is going to be a maximum value. And then the vertex is going to be the opposite of the inside. Since that is a +1, it is going to be a -1. And then the outside number is just going to be what it is. Again, why is it opposite? Is because you got to think what number +1 gives you 0. And the answer is negative 1. Negative 1 plus 1 would give you 0 on the inside, and so that's why your vertex is negative 1 for the x. And so the axis of symmetry is going to be x equals, and whatever your x value is, and the y-intercept is you are going to plug in 0. So I'm going to take my equation, and I'm going to plug in 0. So I'll get negative 1 because the negative is on the outside of the square. And so 0 plus 1 is 1, and 1 squared is 1, but you have a negative on the outside. And then I'm going to bring down the plus 3, and negative 1 plus 3 is 2. And so therefore my y-intercept is 0, 2. So now I'm going to graph what I know. My vertex is negative 1, 3, so that is my vertex. And I know it's going to go down from there. My axis of symmetry is x equals negative 1, and my y-intercept is 0, 2, which is there. So I know it curves, so it curves about that, and then it's going to head down from there. And if I went over and down, then I can go over and down on the other side, and I know it will curve in the same-ish direction on the other side, and that is a rough sketch of my parabola. Now, to convert from a standard form, how do I know it's standard? Because it's in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. Remember, ax squared plus bx plus c. To convert to vertex form, this is what we do. We're looking first for the vertex. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the x value of the vertex. And the way we do that is negative b over 2a. So therefore, again, I know that a is 2, b is negative 10. Be careful about that. B is negative 10, and c is 7. So therefore, negative b, and b itself is negative, over 2 times a. So negative times a negative gives me a positive 10 over 2 times 2, which is 4, and 10 over 4 is 2.5. You can keep it as 10 over 4. That's totally fine too. So therefore, I know that my vertex is going to be 2.5 something. We're not sure what the y value is. And so that's the next thing we do, is we now need to find the y value. And we find it by plugging in the x value. So I have 2 times 2.5 squared minus 10 times 2.5 plus 7. So I'll have 2 times 6.25, if you 2.5 squared is 6.25, minus 10 times 2.5, which is 25, plus 7. So 2 times 6.25 is 12.5 minus 25 plus 7. 12.5 minus 25 is a negative 12.5 plus 7, and that gives me a negative 5.5. So therefore, I now know that my vertex is 2.5, comma, negative 5.5. That represents my h, that represents my k. So I know that it's going to be a parentheses x minus h plus k, but k is negative, so it's going to be minus 5.5. And the last step is to find a. Well, we know a. They actually already told us at the very beginning. A is 2. So therefore, my final equation is 2 times x minus 2.5 squared minus 5.5. So, I would like for you to attempt this one, pause the video, try to see how far you can get, and then hit resume in order to see the answer. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I know that this is ax squared plus bx plus c. So I'm going to go ahead and write the fact that a is 1, b is 8, and c is 3. So the first thing we do is we got to find the x value of the vertex. And we do that by negative b over 2a. So negative b over 2 times a is negative 8 over 2, which is negative 4. That is the x value. Second part is we find the y value of the vertex. And to do that, plug in negative 4. So I'm going to plug negative 4 into x, and then plug negative 4 in again, and then solve. Negative 4 squared is a positive 16. 8 times negative 4 is a negative 32 plus 3. 16 minus 32 is a negative 16 plus 3 is a negative 13. So I know that my equation is y equals a parentheses x minus, I'll go ahead and just put h squared plus k, and I'm going to put in what I know. Well, actually, I know a. I can go ahead and put it in. A is 1. And then x minus h, but a minus and h is negative, so a minus and a negative turns to a positive 4. And then my k is a minus 13. And there is your final answer. Now, you do not have to put a 1 there, because 1 times anything is just itself. So you could keep the 1 off. I'm just showing you that, again, that is where the a would go. In this case, I'm giving a vertex and I'm giving another point, and I need to find the quadratic. So here's what I'm going to do. I first know that is going to be my equation. And I also know that because this is my vertex, I know my h and k. So I know it is going to be x minus 2 squared plus 1. My h goes in here, my k goes on the outside. What we don't know is a, and this is where the point comes in. I know that at some point on the graph that the x value is 3 and the y value is 5. I know that crosses the graph. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to plug the x and the y into this equation, and that is going to help me find a. So I'm going to plug 5 in for y. I'm going to plug 3 in for x, and that will help me to find a. So now I'm just going to solve for a. Now, solve for a. So I get 5 equals a times 1 squared plus 1. So I get 5 times a times 1 plus 1. Well, a times 1 is just a. So to solve for a is I got to subtract 1, and 5 minus 1 is 4. And now I know my h, I know my k, and now I know my a. So my final answer is 4x minus 2 squared plus 1. Please note that 3 and the 5 are only for attempting to solve for a. Do not put that 3 and 5 into your final answer. That's just a very specific point for a very specific part of the problem. So in this case, I want to write the equation in vertex form. Well, I know the vertex. It is the point -1, -3. And I know a point. This is the point 0, -2. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the vertex to find part of the problem. So I know that it's going to be x minus a -1, which turns to a positive, and then k is a -3. So I know almost all of the equation. Now I got to find a. So I'm going to plug in 0, -2. There could have been other points. You could have plugged in this point. You could have plugged in this point. You could have plugged in this point. It didn't matter. Any of those points would work. That's just the first one I came to, and I really like zeros because they're a lot easier to use. So I'm going to plug in 0 into x and y to find A. So I'm going to plug -2 into y. I'm going to plug 0 into x. So I'll get -2 equals a times 1 squared minus 3. I'm going to go ahead and add 3 to both sides. So when I add 3, I'll get a times 1 squared. And 1 squared is just 1, and 1 times a is just a. So now I know a equals 1. So I'm going to just plug it into here. So I'll get 1 times x plus 1 squared minus 3 for my final answer. Now at this point, you may stop the video. However, I do want to mention one thing. Sometimes you will come across